HCPCS after ICD-10, CPCS. Okay, so this question came in, and they wanted to know, would the HCPCS be terminated after ICD-10 implementation comes into effect next year? I would highly appreciate some guidance. Thanks, Kevin. Okay, let me take a swig of my lemonade and we'll jump right into that. Okay, will ICD-10 replace CPT or HCPCS procedure coding? The answer is no. So you'll know that right off. No, it's not going to replace it. The CPT, or the current procedural terminology, and HCPCS healthcare common procedure coding system will continue to be used in the outpatient setting and for practitioner claim forms like ICD-9 procedure codes, ICD-10 PCS codes are for hospital inpatient procedures only. So if you're working in a doctor's office, you're going to be using ICD-10 CM. CM stands for current, well, I can't remember off the top of my head, but the CM is for your doctor's office and clinical modification, and the PCS is inpatient procedures only. Okay, so let's real briefly go over again, what is ICD-10? Now, I figure that most of you probably know what ICD-10 is, but if some of you don't, this is the big scary thing that everybody talks about, and it's not scary at all. We're actually, CCO is very excited about it. It's going to make coding easier in the long run. Everybody else in the world uses an ICD-10 version, except for the U.S. So kind of think of it like, you know, was it in the 80s when they decided that everybody else in the world was using the metric system for math except for the U.S., and so we were going to learn the metric system. And, you know, I won't tell you how old I am, but it's been a long time and I still don't know the metric system very well. So that didn't work out. But with ICD-10, we're again, the U.S. is kind of a straggler with that. ICD-10 is virtually unlimited for coding, whereas ICD-9, we just ran out of codes. And you've got a lot of unspecified codes, but you don't have any numbers to assign to them. They're all used up because you can only use 5 digits. So if you can only use 5 digits, you're going to eventually have to stop. So the internal classification of diseases, 10th revision, clinical modification, or ICD-10 CM for diagnosis coding, and the international classification of diseases, 10th revision, procedural coding system, which is the PCS, for inpatient hospital procedure coding. These code sets will replace the International Classification of Diseases, 9th revision, clinical modification, or ICD-9 CM, volumes 1 and 2, and the International Classification of Diseases, 9th revision, clinical modification, CM, volume 3, for diagnosis and procedure codes, respectively. I feel like one of those people on the game shows that has to read all of the rules before, and they always get some speed reader to rule it. So here's some questions that are come up often with ICD-10. Now we know HCPCS is not going away. Okay. Now, can I opt out of ICD-10 by submitting paper claims instead? And the answer is no, you can't, because everybody is you have to use ICD-10. It doesn't matter if you use paper claims or not. That's not what the problem was. The problem is you ran out of numbers to do the code. So the coding system is changing. And the federal mandate applies to all claims, whether submitted electronically or on paper, and there is no exception for paper claims. And in fact, and I don't know this for sure, but they eventually are going to get to where they don't take paper claims. I assume that that will eventually happen. I don't know when, but there are rules right now stating that, you know, by a certain date everybody has to be electronic. And they're giving great big bonuses to doctors who are already set up in that. And if you're not by a certain date, which I can't remember off the top of my head, you will be fined. And so they're just going to make you do it. Who has the Who has to transition to ICD-10? Well, the answer to that is everyone, but all covered entities under the Health Insurance Probability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA, of 1996 must implement the new code set by October 1st of 2014. Now, previously was October 1st, 2013, and the powers that be came in and said, we need more time. This is expensive to do this transition. We're not ready. We're not going to make that deadline. Please give us more time, or give us more time to talk you out of the switch, which wasn't going to happen. So they said, okay, we'll move it to 2014, but that's it. You know, it's official. That's it. And so covered entities required to use the new code set include health plans, payers, providers, clearinghouse, healthcare information system vendors, billing agents, and other services. So just about anybody that's associated with the medical field will and diagnoses are going to have to use ICD-10. In addition, others affected by the change to ICD-10 will be coding staff, non-physician clinicians, and ancillary departments, quality management, utilization management staff, quality staff, researchers, data analysts, epidemiologists, software vendors, information systems, billing and accounting, compliance officers, auditors, fraud investigators, and government agencies. So this isn't just the medical office saying, okay, we've got to start, you know, converting everything to ICD-10, so when somebody comes in with hypertension, which is 401.9, it's now I-10, and we're just going to put I-10 in there. All these other people have to know what I-10 stands for, or they can't do their job. All right, what happens if I don't switch to ICD-10? Well, this is a pretty funny thing, because if you don't, you're definitely going to have some problems. For HIPAA, covered entities transition to ICD-10 is not an option. So it more or less states that if you're under HIPAA, which everybody in the medical field is under HIPAA, you don't have a choice. You either change or you don't get paid. Without ICD-10, providers will experience delayed payments or even non-payment, increased rejection, denied or pending claims, reduced cash flow, and ultimately lost revenue. Payments to providers cannot be made without the proper ICD-10 coding. So in other words, you cannot use ICD-10 if you want to take cash, but if you want to get paid by any of the providers, you have to use ICD-10. And I think a lot of people forget, coding was not originally set out as a way for providers to get paid. It's statistical purposes. That's why it was originated. It was to track diseases and the processes of disease. So, you know, they wanted to be able to tell how many people died of pneumonia, you know, in Florida in a given year, and they could do that. And so, you know, they can even knock it down to the county or the town because of statistical data that's received from ICD-10. That's how they choose what medication to put into flu shots. Actually, I believe they can only put so many anti-flu strains. They can pick so many, and I don't remember, it's like 3 or 5, I can't remember. But so which ones do they pick? They pick the ones that are going to make the people the sickest, and that the ones they expect to be in a certain area. And then you'll be immune for that for the next year. Then they'll pick 3 or 5 or however many get for the next year. And eventually you're supposed to be immune to anything until it's a new strain. But they do that via statistics. This isn't, you know, somebody just says, oh, I think it's going to be, you know, the bird flu this time or something. So claims for all services and hospitals, inpatient procedures performed on or after October 1st, 2014 must use ICD-10, diagnosis and inpatient procedure codes. This does not apply to CPT coding for outpatient procedures. So again, this is diagnosis coding, not CPT. Claims that do not use ICD-10 diagnosis and inpatient procedure codes cannot be processed. Thus, you won't get paid. It is important to note, however, that claims for services and inpatient procedures provided before the compliance date must be used ICD-9. Okay? Now, there are a couple exceptions, and one of those is like workman's comp, and I think I've got that on another slide. So we'll go over that here in just a second. So to answer the question, is HCPCS going to be around still? Yes, it is. It's not going away. Don't worry, you're still going to use your HCPCS.
Get more CPC exam tips, coding certification training, and CEU credits. Go to www.codingcertification.org.